Okay, hi, my name is Kobe Byler, and I'm going to be redoing a presentation that I actually did in my ENT 350 class. This is for my capstone e-portfolio, so let's get right into it. So this presentation is on a book report that I did. The book is called Toughness: Developing True Strength on and Off the Court. It's by Jay Billis. So first of all, let's get into why I chose this book. So my brother Shane is he's a current athletic director at Lake Center Christian School. He was a former basketball coach. He's currently coaching baseball, varsity baseball there at the school. Um, and my brother is actually 11 years older than me, and he is um, a very good role model in my life, and he's somebody who I look up to. And I remember back when he was coaching varsity basketball, he was reading this book called Toughness, the one I'm talking to you about today. And obviously, me looking up to him, I always wanted to be doing. I was always curious of what he was doing and whatnot. So I was always asking him about the book and why he was reading it. And he said he was going to be teaching it to his players because it had a lot of good messages in it. And I used to go to a lot of the practices, and I remember him bringing in like a pamphlet, um, and it kind of had all the ideas from the book, from Toughness on it, and he was showing it to all of his players and whatnot. And I was kind of like the ball boy at the time, and I just really saw that this book, he started implementing it in his guys, and I started to notice his players becoming tougher. Um, so, you know, to make a long story short, that's kind of why I chose this book. But I also chose this book because it connects deeply with not only sports but entrepreneurship, which this is an entrepreneurship course. Um, it focuses on mental toughness, not just physical strength. And entrepreneurship is a grind, so you need to have toughness to succeed. So let's get into who Jay Billis is. He's a former Duke basketball player under Coach K. He played professionally and became a coach, lawyer, and author. Uh, he is an ESPN basketball analyst. He does a lot of games for the Duke Blue Devils to this day, and he's known for his leadership and no-nonsense take on success. So what is toughness according to Billis? It's not acting macho, um, or kind of my way to kind of explain it is, it's not, and there's nothing really wrong about this, but it's not the guy in a basketball game who's talking smack to all the other players, and if he hits a three, he's throwing up weird celebrations and whatnot. That's not toughness. Real toughness is it's not yelling or acting macho, but it's displaying it with how you play the game. How you are as a leader to your teammates. When things aren't going your way, how are you responding? Are you putting your head down, or are you keeping your head held high? That's real toughness. Real toughness comes from preparation, resilience, accountability, and courage. That's literally comes from the book that Bill has said. It's about showing up. It's about doing what's right. And it's about staying consistent. Toughness is a decision. It's not a trait you're born with. It's not like, oh yeah, that kid's tough, and that's just like his personality. No, I mean, he probably developed that over time with, his upbringing or just the way he wants to display himself. Jay Billis has a quote here. It says, "Toughness is doing what is right for the team when it's not best for you." Key takeaways: preparation, be ready before the moment arrives; courage, speak up, do what's hard. And kind of like the speak up, do what's hard thing, that kind of goes off of the accountability thing here on the bottom. It's like, you got to have the accountability or the courage that when, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, I have to be able as a boss to, speak up and say when I made a mistake, or maybe it's with a client, I messed something up on their property. Like, I have to have that courage, that accountability to be able to do that. So kind of to go back to persistence, keep going when things get tough. In entrepreneurship, there's a lot of ups and downs. Me owning a landscaping company, there's all kinds of ups and downs, things going wrong almost every day, but I have to stay persistent and I have to keep moving forward. When a rocket's going up into outer space, it doesn't stop halfway. It has to keep that momentum going, or it will never get to where it needs to be. Kind of went over accountability already. So communication, say what you mean what you say. Um, and basically, I think that kind of means like, if you're gonna say something to your team, or if you're gonna act like something, you better actually back it up. Um, so let's move on here. Connecting it to entrepreneurship, I kind of already did this, but entrepreneurs, face risk, failure, and long hours. Toughness is essential with this. Running a business takes the same mentality as being an athlete. You're your own coach, captain, and team. Leadership requires calm under pressure, just like in sports. Some of the lessons I'm applying this to my own business. In landscaping business, things don't always go as planned. There's weather issues, there's customer issues, there's team accountability. This all requires toughness, and kind of like the toughness that Billis explains. Showing up prepared, speaking up, holding yourself accountable, being persistent, all that stuff. Staying disciplined with growth, communication, and team trust. Fortunately, this picture here, the lawnmower upside down, I did not take that picture, but that might happen one day. So, but let's hope not. Some of my final thoughts. This book isn't just for athletes; it's for anyone chasing a goal. Toughness is a competitive edge in life and in business. It's about character, grit, and doing hard stuff consistently. I'd highly recommend this book to anyone who wants to become a better leader, wants to grow as a person, or just wants to succeed in life. Now, I don't really know if this part matters for this type of thing, but I'll go over the discussion questions quick. Billis defines toughness as doing what's right even when it's hard or uncomfortable. As a business owner, when do you think you will face situations that require this kind of toughness? How can you prepare yourself to handle them? I'm trying to think if there's a scenario that I can compare it to my own business. There was a time where we were mowing somebody's property and we happened to hit the retaining wall a little bit because there was a hill and we slid down the hill, and so I had to relate to the customer that there was a small amount of damage on their property, and that was tough to do. It was uncomfortable and whatnot, but they understood, and luckily we were able to resolve the issue in a good way. If I wouldn't have said anything, they probably would have found out that we did it anyway, and it wouldn't have been a good thing. So I'll just go over that one. And that is it.